ovarian cancer. Give us the energy to raise awareness for these respective diseases. Thank you for using people to make important advances in these areas. Lastly, I petition heaven so that we as residents would work more closely together to help solve the wicked problems we face in our much-loved city. We ask these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Councilman Harrington.
Please follow me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Next item is reading and approval of the minutes from our August 22nd, 2022 meeting.
Mayor, I make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the August 22nd minutes and that they be approved, if no corrections.
I'll second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes from our previous meeting on August 22nd, considering that there are no corrections. It's been seconded as well. Council, you got any comments or questions about this piece? Are there any public comments about this particular motion? All right, seeing that there are none, Mrs. Stacy, roll call vote.
Eli,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Petey,
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Next item, we have a special guest. One of our special guests, I should say. We have several today. But we have Judith Walters, who's going to give us information about sickle cell anemia drive. And so, Ms. Judith Walters, I know even though I just stated your name, when you get to the microphone for the record's sake, would you state your first and last name, and then you can go into your presentation. Thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening, Mayor Ronnie Williams, Council Lady at Large, Ms. Betty Sawyer Smith, City Council members and staff. I'm Judith Hayes Walters, Community Service Chair for the Crew of Excellence. I'm here on behalf of Ralph Wilson, President and members of the Crew of Excellence for a notable public service project asking our city for a proclamation in promoting and recognizing sickle cell anemia disease for the month of September. What is sickle cell anemia? Sickle cell anemia is a blood disorder. It is inherited. That means that it is passed down the same way people get the color of their skin, their eyes, and their hair from their parents. This is not a contagious disease. You are born with it. The disease affects African Americans mostly, Hispanic Americans of Central and South American descent, Middle Eastern, Asians, Indians, and Mediterranean heritage. While our major race don't rank amongst those likely to have sickle cell, they can develop it as well. It can affect people of any background. On Saturday, September 24th, there will be a blood bus in front of Walmart, especially for the purpose to donate blood for this cause and others. Please encourage your workers to go and give blood. When you give, others will live. Thank you. And at this time, I would like to present our mayor, Mayor Ronnie Williams, with a sickle cell wreath to be hung on the City Hall door, recognizing September as Sickle Cell Month. Would you please come forward?
Yes, and I would love to do that. Could you state your first and last name? Did I get her to do that? Did you state your first and last name for the? You did?
Yes, I did. Okay.
He's on.
Oh, wow.
Crew of Excellence founding member.
There you go.
All right. Thanks
Thank you,
again,
Ms.
Mrs.
Hayes.
Walters, for being here on tonight, for helping us to bring awareness to sickle cell anemia. Next item on the agenda, we have a few proclamations. The first one is Proclamation Number 75 of 2022 by Councilman Nielsen.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the Women's Resource Center, a pregnancy help medical clinic, was founded in 1989 as a nonprofit organization that offers services, assistance, and guidance to young women facing difficult life situations, most often due to unplanned pregnancies. And whereas in 2006, the Women's Resource Center became a pregnancy help medical clinic that offered material assistance as well as obstetrical, ultrasound, prenatal education, breastfeeding assistance, and postpartum follow-up. And whereas the staff of the Women's Resource Center consists of trained volunteers, including registered nurses, as well as the donated time of Dr. Martin Aviles, who oversees medical issues of the center, and whereas the Women's Resource Center is the largest organization of its type and scope in central Louisiana. And whereas the Women's Resource Center will be hosting the annual Celebration of Life fundraising gala on Thursday, September 29, 2022, at the Event Center, in which Gianna Jessen will be the keynote speaker. And whereas the city wishes to honor Miss Gianna Jessen in her life crusades and taking time for a busy schedule to promote the mission of the Women's Resource Center. Now, therefore, I, Ronnie Williams, Jr., Mayor of the City of Natchitoches, do hereby proclaim Thursday, September 29, 2022, as Gianna Jessen Day in the City of Natchitoches in honor of the dedication and contributions of Ms. Jessen. And I move that we adopt Proclamation Number 75.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there someone from the Women's Resource Center here today? Okay. All right.
Yay.
A familiar face for us. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm Amy Matoir Roberson. I'm the City of Natchitoches Early Childhood Coordinator, but I also serve on the Board of Directors for the Women's Resource Center. Thank you so much for taking that time out to do this proclamation for the Women's Resource Center. It is very important that the community knows that this resource is here, it's available in Natchitoches. It is for parents, as you stated, that are in need of many different services, anything from a pregnancy test all the way to nursing information, resources, any type of accommodation that you could think of. It's been a benefit to the community for many, many years, and like you stated, it's September 29th. I will also be leaving some gala packets in the back. Any individual, agencies, businesses that would like to sponsor this organization, please feel free to pick up a packet, donate if you can. You can also reach out to me or contact the Women's Resource Center directly at 357-8888. Have any questions? Comments?
All right, any comments or questions? No? Okay, do we want to, what you got, Ms. Hayes?
He's got the phone.
He wants to present it?
Yep.
Want to go ahead and do it, or we want to vote first, or what we want to do? So let's make sure this passes. I don't know what these
I didn't
folks.
say my name.
Yeah.
Roll call vote.
But Women's Resource Center is, again, everything Amy said, amazing organization. The city is a sponsor of the gala, and again, able to help women out during this time of life. So, all right. Any comments, questions, council? Any public comments or questions about this particular piece, this proclamation?
I could have saved my stamp today.
Okay. All right.
Do we have a second?
I think we did.
did.
Thank you, Councilman Nielsen and Councilwoman at large. All right, Mr. Stacy, roll call vote.
Eli,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Etty,
Yes.
All righty. Okie dokie. The next item on the agenda is Proclamation Number 76 of 2022. That's Councilman PT.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas ovarian cancer is the fifth leading cause of cancer-related deaths among women and adults with more deaths than any other gynecologic cancers. Whereas the American Cancer Society estimates that 22,440 women are diagnosed with ovarian cancer every year in the U.S. Whereas recognition of the warning signs are essential to an early detection and effective treatment. Whereas early symptoms of ovarian cancer are commonly overlooked, public awareness and knowledge are essential to getting a diagnosis before the cancer worsens. Whereas it is critical that those affected by ovarian cancer have the proper resources and access to health care to prevent, detect, treat, and ultimately defeat ovarian cancer and all cancers. Whereas ovarian cancer and the hardship it brings have affected too many lives. This month, the city of Natchitoches stands with everyone who has been touched by this disease, and we recognize all those committed to advancing the fight against cancer through research, advocacy, and quality care. Now, therefore, I, Ronnie Williams, Jr., Mayor and the Natchitoches City Council do hereby proclaim September 2022 as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Natchitoches and encourage all citizens to honor ovarian cancer patients, survivors, and their families and caregivers, and remember those who have lost their lives to this devastating disease. I so move that resolution number 76 be adopted.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded to adopt this proclamation. Comments or questions, council? All right, I see we do have, is that Leah Lentz? All right, are there some comments you want to make?
I want to thank you and give you some teal candy, because
All right.
it wouldn't be an official proclamation without some
Right.
treats,
And
right?
please
Of course.
state your first and last
Oh,
name
I'm
for us.
sorry,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I'm Leah Lenz. Hello. In 2011, I didn't know what the color teal was, honestly. And then my mom, we're from rural Louisiana, and she brought a roll of ribbon from the Winfield Walmart and a prevention magazine. And said, we have to do something. I have to thank you. You rocked that. That was beautiful. I'm serious. I just sat there and I felt so honored to be a part of this. And I thank you, Stacy, for all the years of keeping us moving. And my son told me to keep it short. But I do want to give you our teal ribbons and you guys some candy. But my deepest appreciation for letting this continue. When I was explaining to our 8-year-old what we were doing when he saw NSU's gates, so thank you to Dr. Marcus Jones, and LSMSA's gates, also turning those teal. I have 21, 19, and an 8-year-old. He was our little godsend. And explaining what this is kind of weird, of what this is about. You did a beautiful job. And my favorite part is what he's learning about his city, where he's growing up, and that this matters, and the work that we do as a community, it makes a difference. So thank you for letting me be part of that. I'm always happy to see y'all, and I'll stop there and just tell you thank you. I'm very grateful to be able to do this work with you.
Miss Leah, is there a certain day we're wearing teal or no?
Oh, thank you. That's good. Thank you. He's the mayor for a lot of good reasons. So we celebrate teal on Tuesdays. So I hope tomorrow you'll all break out your teal. Okay. All of my students at LSMSA know every Tuesday is going to be teal. And so I hope that all of you, every Tuesday during the month of September, I'm bringing a little bit of ribbons around. And if any of you would like ribbons for your home, I'm happy to cut some more ribbons. I bought another reel. And you guys will tell me when I can put ribbons in the city. I want to do it on the right date. But yes, Tuesdays. Y'all do this so well. Thank you. Did I forget anything else? That's it? I got to give you prizes. But
Any other questions or anything? Any public comments or questions about this?
I was nervous. He said that we were going to have questions at the end. But you do, I will tell you this. I am giving y'all these ribbons because when you see the teal, I want you to talk to your families because it's a silent killer. And that's why she'd asked me to say something, because we find out too late, too often, and the early diagnosis is the best prognosis, right? So we talk about it, so you talk, because it's not just a woman's disease. You ask any husband, you ask anyone who's lost someone to cancer, it's never a one person or a one gender disease. It's a family, it's a community disease. So you go home every Tuesday, you wear Tuesday, you see the teal ribbons, you talk to your people, and you ask them, have you checked? I have to ask myself that. I have to ask my sister, did we check? Because I do these ribbons, that'd be bad, right?
Right.
So, yeah. But I would like to give these to you. That's okay.
Well, look, I didn't see any questions or comments. All right.
No, we're good?
Mrs. Stacy, roll call vote.
Okay.
Eli,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Petey,
Yes.
I think we got a proclamation. We're going to get a picture with you.
I hope so.
And if our ladies on the
Thank you.
council want to join us for this,
Awesome. Thank you.
that'd be
Okay, I'm gonna throw candy, but we're gonna set up your picture first.
okay.
But I promise you, hey.
Okay, thanks a lot. Don't forget your teal on Tuesdays, all right?
Deal on Tuesday in September.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is number 77, Councilman Harrington.
No, he's not here.
Go ahead, sir.
This is Proclamation Number 77 of 2022. And whereas records show that the concept of the meat pie took shape in the mid-1700s in Louisiana by Native Americans and later enhanced by the Spanish. And whereas 55 years ago, James Lazions opened his meat pie kitchen, which is still in operation today in historic downtown Natchitoches. And whereas the recipe of the meat pie has changed slightly from its inception and has been handed down from generation to generation, however, the basic ingredients and the process of creating a meat pie remains the same. Whereas, with an abundance of excitement, in 2002, the Natchitoches Meepah Festival was formed to celebrate the noted culinary staple in Natchitoches, Louisiana. And whereas in 2003, the Natchitoches Meat Pie was named Louisiana's official meat pie, and Natchitoches was one of the last cities to not have an identified food festival until 2002. And whereas the annual festival attracts visitors from throughout the state and over a dozen other states as well as each year. And whereas the festival has always been a family-oriented, non-admission required event over a 2-day period in downtown Natchitoches, helping to enhance the area's economy with individual activities that can be enjoyed at a small fee. And whereas the organized committee for the festival is a complete volunteer committee, and whereas the Natchitoches Meat Pie Festival is returning by popular demand after a 2-year break due to the novel coronavirus. Now therefore I, Ronnie Williams Jr., Mayor, and the Natchitoches City Council do hereby proclaim September 16th and 17th, 2022 as Natchitoches Meepah Festival Day in the city of Natchitoches and invite all residents to participate and enjoy the two-day festival that will include various bands, fireworks, vendors, children's performances and play area, and a how-to workshop will encompass this year's celebration. I move to adopt Resolution 77 of 2022.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded to adopt this. Everybody, I think, knows about the Meepah and how important it is in identifying part of our culture here in the city of Natchitoches. Certainly all of the history that we heard about, the Councilman Harrington just read. I think we have, is there someone here who's going to speak? Mr. Jimmy, is it? Okay.
I think some of the group showed up, I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared for this and all. But anyway, I'm Jimmy Harper, with the Meepah Festival. This is Tina Rachel and Doc Cootie. We assumed the festival in 2009. We were doing the first motorcycle ride of Natchitoches. It started in '99 for charity for the Boys and Girls Club. Y'all excuse me, I broke a tooth the other day. And the bad part was it was a cap and a crayon, so I lost 2 of them. So anyway, we assumed it in 2009, and so we started, it's all for charity, just like the motorcycle event was set up for. And because we want to give back to Natchitoches, we keep it free. We've been told, you can charge even a couple of dollars admission and pick up money. But I was brought up from meat beginnings, and like a lot have. And so we just want to give back. Tina?
Yes, we do this, we give our money to the Boys and Girls Club
State your name.
to help them, underprivileged children who can afford to go and do things like that. So we are a charitable organization. We give back. We don't keep the money for ourselves.
Okay. All right, Mr. Doc Cootie coming?
Doc Cootie, I guess a lot of you know me. I'm involved in this. I've always, in all my life, I've been involved to help children. And that's basically what I think the Meepah Festival about, to help the kids. And to show the parents, to show the kids out and let them enjoy themselves. And everybody in Natchitoches get together as a family. And today, that's what we need. We need to get together. And all this pulling against one another, it's not showing the kids what family is about. Thank you.
Okay. See, Mr. Jimmy has something. And there are some other guests who are with us as well. But Mr. Jimmy, before we introduce them, I don't know how y'all want to do it, allow them to introduce themselves, how we want to do that. But you broke your tooth. Were you eating a meat pie at the time? If so, man, I want you to tell me about that place. What you got for us, Mr. Jimmy? Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Pretty cool. And they look like they're cooked meat pies. You cooked them already?
They ready to go.
Oh, wow.
Pass them around, bring the plates.
Okay, so do we want to kind
They feeding us.
Want to go ahead and vote?
Okay. Yeah, good suggestion. Any comments, questions, council? Are there any public comments about this particular piece? Mr. Doc Cootie?
I would like to say one thing about the meat pies. The lady that made these, she was the cook at Northwestern. Her name is Miss Courtney, and she the one made those meat pies. And so I'm quite sure a lot of you went to Northwestern and ate a lot of her food. But she makes some of the best meat pies around, and of course everybody else does a great job.
Oh, wow. That's cool. I don't know if we ever got food during the council meeting.
No, I think it's a first. My
But that's
6
all
years,
right.
I never got. Got a cooking one time.
Oh, wow. Let me make sure I cover this.
Need a meat.
Okay.
Good.
All right, and I see you have some other guests. What do we have? We have a Miss Natchitoches. Okay, could y'all tell us real quickly, just very briefly, to the microphone, tell us who you are.
Do we have a cord? Thank you, dear. How you been?
Thank you, thank you.
Good.
Eat mine.
And just please state your first and last name. That microphone, you can't adjust it down to you, yeah.
Thank you.
State your first and last name and any other information you want to tell us about what you got on and what's going on.
Okay, I'm Carson Garcia, and I'm very excited to represent the town of Natchitoches in the Meepah Festival.
All right, awesome, awesome.
She can't read.
Here we go.
Lexi.
Want to tell us your first and last name?
Lexi Seawood.
Lexi Seawood.
Okay,
She's
awesome.
adorable.
Awesome.
This is Tiny Miss Riley Woods. And I am Ms. Natchitoches Meepah, Casey Powell.
All right, all right.
My name is Chloe Carter, and I'm your teen Miss Natchitoches Meepah Festival. My name is Carly Spears, and I'm your junior Miss Natchitoches Meepah Festival Queen.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Albert, the Miss Natchitoches Meepah Festival Queen.
All right, congratulations. Well, look, we're excited to have you all with us today and excited about the Meepah Festival. I think we've got the 16th and 17th, so that's this Friday and Saturday. And it is for a good cause, and it's certainly surrounding the food that we all know about and certainly many of us love in the city of Natchitoches. Didn't think there were any questions. We're going to go now to roll call vote. Mr. Stacy?
Yes. Eli,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
PT.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. All right, now time for a photo op. So all of us, council, if y'all want to jump in this picture, we'll get in it. That'll be a pretty big picture up there.
You already, what it tastes like. I know. This- I'm gonna fight.
Sir, handing out Meepahs, could you shake over about 4 people? Sorry, sir.
Not all, everything.
Too late.
Everything.
All right. Our next item on the agenda, we have some introductions from planning and zoning. And the first one is number 53 by Councilwoman Washington Eli.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 53 of 2022, an ordinance amending the ordinance number 64 of 2001 by changing the zoning classification properly described as following. Lot 4, Block F of Keegan, additional from R1 residential to R1 residential with special expectation reason, whereas the Planning Commission of the City of Natchitoches, State of Louisiana, has recommended at their meeting on September the 6th that the application of Claire LaCour to rezone the property described above from residential 1 with special expectation zoning to operate a short-term rental, 516 Keegan Street, be approved, and I move to adopt resolution number 53 of 2022.
Oh, no, it's for introduction. So, yeah, we're not going to adopt it at this time. But
Correction.
Yeah. Thanks again, Meepah,
Let me go.
Queens, for being here with us on today. All right. We actually have, I think these next three, Chantrell, are kind of similar. I know they're different places.
Yeah, that's the only
Just different
change.
locations. So would you just kind of, even thinking about the next ones coming ahead, I don't know if there's something different, you could say it at this time, but you want to explain what these are?
Well, with a short-term rental, this is allowing the homeowner to rent out their entire homes for a specific length of time, whether it be from 1 day to a week to a month to 6 months. The only difference is between a regular rental of any type of structure or residential home, there is a tax that's associated with this type of home. Whether it be that these people decide to live in the home at any specific time, if they decide just to rent it out, they have that option to do so.
Okay. All right, council, you got any comments or questions about this particular item?
Are they all, under our ordinances for special exceptions that list only certain special exceptions, like I'm looking at it, an airport dusting service, a cemetery, a church, correctional detention institution, electric substation, radio and television broadcasting, a revival church, temporary, and a bed and breakfast. Are all these going to be bed and breakfasts?
No, they're not. A bed and breakfast is actually regulated by the state. A bed and breakfast is just a rental of one individual room in a house, and the occupancy, they don't actually live there either. For a short-term rental, these people will actually live there at a specific time of year, but then when they're gone, whether they're gone on vacation or whether they're just, whatever reason they want to do it for, they have the option to rent out the entire home.
Well, where, in our ordinances, it doesn't list anything like that for special exception. It only lists the ones I named.
Well, it's a R1. So
Yeah.
because it is designated as a residential R1, it still can be used there. Even though we don't designate it out saying short-term rental, being a short-term rental are not the same. It still has a designation of R1 residential, single family.
No, I understand it's R1, but I was confused because under special exception, it doesn't.
Well, the special exception is just to give it the initiative to do the tax, to say, this is what I want to designate my home for. That's the only reason why we do the special exception, just to say, I want to have the tax initiative to say I want to rent my home out for a higher tax rental or whatever. That's what the special exception is for. No, it doesn't spell it out in our ordinance, but there are a lot of things in our ordinances that don't specifically, word for word, spell it out.
Yeah, what I'm saying is we may need to revisit our ordinances because it has a specific list of only special exceptions, and that's not one of them.
As for the short-term rental?
Yeah. It's not on that list.
Well, I mean, if you look at everything that we have there, I mean, I do understand what you're saying, so that's your call if that's what city council wants to do. But as a special exception, because it's still designated as R1, we can call that, just for the designation for the use by right in a R1.
Mr. Harrington, I agree with you. We've been talking about the ordinances and updating them, so we're in the process of kind of starting that.
Yeah, because I got stuck on that. I was like, well, where's it fit in this? Where is it? In section 2B of the ordinances, let me find it. It says that, this is just regarding R1 single-family districts, how it defines it. And it says the district regulations are designed to protect the quote-unquote residential character of the areas by prohibiting all commercial activity. And then part 3, which is under the special exceptions, it says, it states each and every specific use shall be considered on an individual basis.
Correct.
So you're looking at, I know 2 of these properties in the historic district, correct?
They are.
And so you know, you treat every one of them individually, two in the historic district. With the historic district, I think everyone here can agree is full of bed and breakfasts, full of rentals as well, even though that may already be R1. So if you could get over the hiccup that the exception list doesn't exactly have what they're wanting on there, I think you look at the character of the surrounding areas, it fits the character. The one on Keegan, I'm a little,
That's across from where the Chick-fil-A is.
yes. To me, there's a difference between rentals that are for residents and rentals that are used solely as a business. What I mean by that, say a vacation rental, where no one can ever maintain a residence there or state that they're residing there. Correct me if I'm wrong, the one on Keegan, that's the one, is the hospital using for temporary residence for doctors?
They haven't come to the contract yet. She was approached, is what I'm understanding, but it hasn't been fulfilled. But from my understanding, that's one of the things that they're wanting to use it for.
Okay. Because that's my understanding too. So that would make it, even though it may be short-term residence, it's still, someone's maintaining it, will be maintaining it as a residence.
Correct.
For whatever period of time. And not as a bed and breakfast or an Airbnb. That's not your understanding of that one.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. Do we have somebody here representing this one?
516
Ordinance
Keegan?
number 53?
For 516 Keegan or any of the applications?
Well, I see Miss Sarah Ziegler here, but,
Ms. LaCour's here?
look, for 516?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if there's something you'd like to say. Is it Miss LaCour or Mrs. LaCour? I'm not sure how you would designate me. Okay. Well, could we have you, Ms. LaCour, could we have you come to the microphone and state your first and last name and just anything you want to provide to the council in terms of the use of of your property?
I'm Carolyn LaCour, and I'm a single divorced woman. I don't know if anybody knows me. I've been here for a while, born and raised here, and left and came back, taking care of my mom. My practice is in marriage and family therapy, psychotherapy. No longer working. Well, I think I'm no longer working. It's a joke. And the reason for me to try with the 516 address at Keegan is I wanted to make it available for families that are coming into town, as well as doctors and nurses that are coming in from the hospital. The long-term rental that I've had has not turned out well. I find that I'm a rescuer, and I don't end up getting rent, and I don't kick people out. I'm not very good to do this kind of business. So I thought if it was shorter term, I might be able to survive financially between me and my mom being retired. And I don't know if you wanted all that information, but I want to be open with you. Okay?
Questions, Council?
I just comment or two. I don't disagree that it's past time that we update our ordinance. These were not around, or at least not, we didn't know anything about them 15, 20 years ago. They're very, very popular all across the country, and we got to be able to accommodate it. Now, how we do that, we'll figure it out. But there are some spots that obviously are close to downtown. Those are going to be, I think we had one on Dimazir. That's close. That's walking distance. And I think it's a good concept if it's done right. And I know there's some negatives to it, but we have other laws on the books, if you will, to address most of that. and we can always come back and tweak it.
I was able to go around in the neighborhood and visit with some of my neighbors to see what they thought about it. And I did not have any objections. I don't know if that is helpful.
Yes.
I think that helps define what our ordinances state as the character of the surrounding property. And how do you define the character of it? It's kind of open-ended definition. It's for us to define as a council. I think is how it's putting in there, and then if it ever gets to it, it's for the court to decide. But I think that's one way to look at the definition is, what do the homeowners and all the surrounding properties think? Are they all against it? Are they all supportive of it? And then what properties are near there? Are there other, this is kind of how I understand you're running it is not necessarily solely a business. It's short-term rental, but it's for short-term residents, is my understanding of it, is how you're looking at it.
Yes.
Not someone coming in for one night or 2 nights, like say like a hotel. And so, you know, I feel it fits the character of the area where you're in,
Okay.
due to it being a residence.
Across the street, we now have the Chick-fil-A.
Right, yeah.
And so that has changed some things, and the residents were concerned about that, but they were okay with me.
Well, and that's what, like it says, each one of these is treated individually. You look at it individually, if it fits the character, what it's gonna be exactly, et cetera, et cetera. And that's same with the other two, where they are and their locations, I think fit the character of those locations. And I just wanted to be kind of transparent about that. And, yeah.
Have I answered?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, Counsel, you good, Counsel?
I'm good.
All righty, thank you so much, Ms. LaCour, for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, we appreciate it. All right, next item on the agenda, still for introduction, it's, is that ordinance number 54, that's Councilwoman at-large Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 54, 2022 is an ordinance amending ordinance number 64, 2001 by changing zoning classification of the property described as a lot northwest corner of Nelkin and Demazier Streets, 53 feet front of on Nelkin Street by 125th Street, being the address of 202 Demazier Street. Whereas this was recommended at the meeting of September the 6th, at the Planning and Zoning meeting of September the 6th, that the application of John and Sarah Ziegler to rezone this property from R1 residential to R1 residential with the special exception to operate a short-term rental at 202 Demazier Street be approved. This is for introduction only.
All right, and we do have Ms. Sarah Ziegler here, right?
She is.
Okay. Would you do, is that something you want to say about this property, or? Yeah, okay. Please come to the microphone and state your first and last name.
My name is Sarah Ziegler. My husband and I bought the property the first of the year. We moved in with his mom to help take care of her because she's battling cancer and now at moderate stage COPD. And we didn't feel like she needed to live by herself. So we purchased that property because, to be honest with you, we didn't know how long she had. By the grace of God, she's still with us. We're still taking care of her and living with her. So our boys were there this summer. They enjoyed the house and living downtown. But until we can decide what we're going to do about our permanent residence, we would like to Airbnb our house. And we want to go about it the right way and give the city its due. So,
Okay.
any questions?
Council, you got comments or questions for Mrs. Ziegler?
I'll just copy and paste what I said before to this one.
Me too. We're surrounded
Yes.
by short-term rentals. And,
Okay.
It fits
bed
the
and
character of
breakfasts.
the area
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Only question I have, in any of these that come up, we need to, even though it's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily involve us, is to make sure there's no covenant on your property that doesn't allow this. Because, like I said, our ordinances is really all we have to go off of, but some things, some properties, some neighborhoods will have a covenant. This one probably doesn't, okay? But some will, I'm just talking in general, for anyone out there listening on the internet. If you're looking at doing anything like this, make sure your property doesn't have a covenant, because if it does, that doesn't allow this, and it passes, and you move forward with it, someone sues you over it with that covenant, you're probably gonna lose in court, and then, even though we don't, that covenant's a contract between the homeowner and the homeowners in the area, we don't really have to get involved in that, but that's also on the back of our minds, because we know if that person gets sued, that's gonna cost the city money too. Am I right, Alex? If the city's gonna get sued, and if we know going in the covenant doesn't allow it, so just everyone do your homework and make sure you don't have a covenant.
And by covenant, you're talking homeowners association?
No, it's separate than a homeowner association.
Okay.
It's a separate deal.
Yeah, some covenants run with your land.
Yeah.
So,
It'll just say that this property in this section cannot do A, B, C, D. Not everyone has them. Like, I don't have them, but one street over, some houses have them. It's weird. But it's when they were built. But I'm just throwing it out there. This isn't geared towards you. I'm just throwing it out there.
He just kind of got on his little pulpit and just
I don't want
put
the
it
attorney
on
coming out more money if we don't have to.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think you had a question.
Well, now, given that this is introduction,
that's right.
it will be voted on the 26th. And you can make a comment at that particular meeting. At this meeting, we allow council to question and comment. But then when it comes up for a vote, then we allow the public to do that. All right, council, you got anything else for Mr. Ziegler?
Good.
All right, thank you for being here tonight. All right, and then there's our next item on the agenda, also for introduction, is ordinance number 55 of 2022. Councilwoman Washington Eli.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 55 of 2022, the ordinance amending the ordinance number 64 of 2001 by changing the zoning classification of the property described as Lot 5 of David Pearson Survey, south side of Sydney Street from R1 residential to R1 residential with special expectation. Whereas the Planning Commission of the City of Natchitoches, State of Louisiana, has recommended at their meeting of September the 6th, 2022, that the application of Winston, Oregon, to rezone the property described as from R1 residential to R1 residential with special expectations zoning to operate a short-term rental, 203 Sydney Street be approved, and this is just for introduction. I think we all have explained what the expectation means, so we know that the things need to be updated. So, any comments?
Again, as she was stating, we've kind of talked about this in two previous introductions we made, but council, you got any? I don't know if there's anything you got here. Pretty much same thing we talked about. Okay, again, we'll see this in a couple weeks. All right, moving on to ordinances final. Ordinance number 49 of 2022, that's Councilman Harrington.
This was introduced previously. I'll read by title only. Ordinance number 49 of 2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, Ronnie Williams Jr., to execute an instrument entitled Service Agreement, under which the city will contract for consulting and professional services from Merchant McIntyre and Associates LLC related to pursuing and obtaining federal funding. I move to adopt ordinance number 49 of 2022.
I second.
Okay, motion was made and seconded. I just want to enter into the record. Now, I know we're not in court, but there is something I shared with the council via email today in terms of this firm, and just read the title very, very quickly. Merchant McIntyre named top performing lobbying firm by Bloomberg Government. And so it has some quotes in there and some good information. So I just wanted to kind of share that. I had come across that after we introduced it a couple weeks ago. So we know that Merchant McIntyre is a part of our team. They're not the only parts, but they're part of the team that help us to get some federal grants. We've got folks here, as I mentioned, Grants Wright and Nicole Gray, also Nick Verrett. certainly play respectively in important parts in that effort as well. We know about the 17.2 raise grant, but we're also submitting other grants. We submitted one last Thursday, I think was a really good narrative. We're looking at, I believe, one this week, right? And then one in a couple weeks. And we're gonna look at EDA as well for water treatment purposes. So and I said this before, with everything that's out there, I think it makes sense that we continue this relationship for another year. I don't know if there are any comments or questions that anybody on council have. Okay?
Stay the course.
Stay the course, yeah. And let it rain on us.
Get another 17 million.
Yeah.
They've
Well,
done well.
what's that?
They have all done well.
Yep. So the $9 million ask was last week. It's South Drive Bridge grant again. I think it's a strong case. I know there'll be other people out there, trying to get those dollars as well, but we all are sending the message that we are adamant about federal dollars. Because here's the thing, as much money as we are able to bring in through our utilities system, through sales taxes, we still have to deal with scarcity, meaning there's always more need than there is money, all right? So whenever we can get those federal dollars to help us to accomplish some of those projects, it just means we're able to do more. So again, we're looking at every area that we can to do projects that are gonna serve our residents. Are there any public comments or questions? All righty, seeing none. Mrs. Stacy?
Eli,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Yes.
Harrington. PG.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Next item on the agenda, it's ordinance number 50, and it's read by Councilman PT.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance amending the 2022-2023 budget to reflect additional revenues and expenditures. I think this may be for Ms. Clarissa, Planning Director, but I so move that this resolution, resolution number 50, be adopted.
Ordinance.
Yeah, actually, what is that?
Sorry, ordinance.
Ordinance, yeah.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. Mrs. Clarissa Brown Smith.
Yes, I think we kind of described it last time. This was the additional revenue and expenses that we were going to recognize for the city marshal. Just to cover some expenses that they have, ongoing operational expenses. They will be still assuming some responsibility in that manner with the funds that they will continue to receive. But we will take a portion of that responsibility. Some of the items are salaries, fuel expense, and maintenance of the city marshal's vehicle.
Okay, thank you a lot, ma'am, for that. I see we do have our marshal, Mr. Randy Williams, here. I don't know if you're here, or is there something you'd like to say as well since you're here? Oh, not yet.
Oh, risky.
Did we do it?
No.
Should we do it?
Okay.
Should we do it?
All right. Did we ask public comments? Any public comments on this piece?
I think he is the public comment.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
You gotta come.
Yeah, you would have
come
to.
forward now.
Yeah, once we go on, we're moving on to something else. Yeah. Please state your first and last name.
Okay, my name is Randy Williams. I'm a city marshal. I've been a city marshal for 7 years. And we hope it passed because this is going to help us, and also it'll also help the city in the long run. And we're here to help everybody here on the council, the mayor, everyone. I've had a lot of help from all of y'all, and I just hope it passes where it'll help us and get things going. 7 years having to do it on my own, and we're running out. So this is a way to help us get back on our feet.
Yes, sir. Council, you got any questions, comments for Mr. Marshall?
Good.
Our Marshall? All right. Again, thank you, Marshall, for being here on today. It was really great talking to you throughout this process.
Thank you again. If it passes, thank all of y'all.
Hang tight, it'll be done here.
All right, Mrs. Stacy. That's
Keep
on
your
you.
fingers crossed.
Eli,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
PT,
Yes.
All right, 5-0, Mr. Marshall. It passes. All right.
Thank y'all very much. I know it's been a long process, but I thank y'all for y'all's time and support. This is going to help us really, really tremendous. And I thank the mayor and the council for helping us do this.
Yes, sir. Thank you a lot, sir.
If y'all need us for anything, give us a call. We're ready.
We'll be calling.
Thank
We'll
you.
be calling.
Thank y'all for
thank
what you do.
Yes, thank you.
All right, these next pieces, most of them, not all, but most of them are to be introduced. They're ordinances, and the first one is ordinance number 51 of 2022. That's Councilwoman at Large Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 51 of 2022 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Natchitoches to award the bid for the water distribution and production system improvements, Powhatan Connection, which is contract 1 water well, LCDBG, fiscal year 2020 through 2021, potable water improvements, project number 3080, bid number 0651. Whereas resolution number 066 of 2022 was passed by the Natchitoches City Council on July 25th, 2022, authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids for the water distribution and production system improvements of the Powhatan Connection contract water well. Whereas this bid was advertised in the Natchitoches Times on July 28th, August 4th, and August 11, 2022, in accordance with law. And whereas 2 bid proposals were received and opened as follows: Watson Well Drilling and Construction, LLC of Rayville, Louisiana, $370,693. Continental Drilling Service, Inc. of Shreveport, Louisiana, $442,526. Whereas on September the 6th, 2022, the appointed committee of Clarissa Smith, Ed Lee, Director of Purchasing, Matt Anderson, Director of Utilities, and Eddie Harrington, Councilman, reviewed the bid proposals for the water distribution and production system improvement. Whereas the above appointed committee members unanimously recommend the city award the bid to the lowest bidder, being Watson Well Drilling and Construction of Rayville, Louisiana, in the amount of $370,693. This is for introduction only.
Okay, Mr. Matt Anderson, you got any additional comment here?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is part of our supplemental water supply that goes along with the Powhatan Connection. This well is expected to produce about 300,000 gallons a day of drinking water, and along with the Powhatan Connection, which has now become an emergency connection, when they're using water, they'll use about 20,000 gallons a day. This is all part of a grant, so we will net, even when Powhatan is using water, we will net about 280,000 gallons a day.
Okay. Any questions or comments, council?
Have y'all started operation on this yet?
No, ma'am.
Because okay,
No, ma'am.
'cause I've been having some discussions with people. Okay. Do you know when?
Well, as soon as it's voted on next week, we'll then give the contractor notice to proceed, and he'll start ordering his material, depending how long that takes. We'll go from there. So we'll know more after
the vote.
next council meeting, yes.
Additional questions, council? All right, again, this has just been introduced. We'll vote in our next city council meeting. Next item is ordinance number 52 of 2022, and that's Councilman Nielsen.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me, ordinance number 52 of 2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Natchitoches to award the bid for the water distribution and production system improvements, the Powhatan connection, that just every time I hear that, I think of Hardwick Rivers. I think he signed the original documents on this. We'll always miss him. But contract 2, water mains and site work, LCDBG, fiscal year 2020 through 2021, potable water improvements, SCC project number 3080, bid number 0652, and whereas resolution number 67 of 2022 was passed by the Natchitoches City Council on July 25th, 2022, authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids for the water distribution and production system improvements, Powhatan connection, and LCDBG fiscal year 2020 to 2021 LCDBG potable water improvements. Whereas this bid was advertised in the Natchitoches Times on July 28, August 4, and August 11, 2022, in accordance with law, and whereas 5 bid proposals were received and opened as follows. Bid number 1 was ASB Utility Construction LLC out of Shreveport, $1,839,788. Bid number 2 is Womack and Sons Group LLC, Harrisonburg, Louisiana, $1,869,748. And number 3 is David Lawler Construction Incorporated, Shreveport, Louisiana, $1,973,188.76. Pulley Construction Incorporated in Benton, Louisiana, $2,174,000. And bid number 5 was APEC Construction LLC out of Leesville, Louisiana, $2,296,450.12. Whereas on September 6, 2022, the appointed committee of Clarissa Smith, Finance Director, Ed Lee, Director of Purchasing, Matt Anderson, Director of Utilities, and Eddie Harrington, Councilman, reviewed the bid proposals for water distribution and production improvements, Powhatan connection, and whereas the above appointed committee members unanimously recommend the city award the bid to the lowest bidder, ASB Utility Construction LLC, Shreveport, Louisiana, in the amount of $1,839,788. And this is for introduction.
Right. It's self-explanatory the way the councilman read it, but Matt, there may be some, you may want to put some of this in layman's terms, so.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we're going to, with this part of the grant, we're going to construct a water line that ties in near the Highway 3191 water tank, and that will extend to Powhatan and be their emergency backup supply. If you're not familiar with what has gone on in Powhatan the past 5 or 6 years or maybe longer, they're desperate need of water. Their water wells were in bad shape. They have since fixed some of that. Actually, they're being run now by Sabine Water Works District 3, but this will still be an emergency backup supply for them. There was many, I believe, many times in recent years they had no water. Their residents had absolutely no water because of problems in their system. So this will help alleviate that. And this is all under a grant.
All under, you said the grant, right? That's your
Yes.
last piece, okay. Comments, questions for Matt, y'all? Okay, all right, I think great explanation. It's written well. All right, moving on to our next 3 related to the American Rescue Plan. We also know that that's ARPA, and so ordinance number 56 of 2022, Councilman Harrington.
Ordinance number 56 of 2022, an ordinance to designate funds from the American Rescue Plan for use by the city of Natchitoches for the purchase of certain equipment and other movable property to be wholly owned and titled to the city of Natchitoches, authorizing the execution of any and all documents necessary to properly effectuate such purchases and otherwise providing with respect thereto. This is for introduction only.
Okay, I think, council, you've got that amount. I think you should have a, some of the equipment, where the equipment is gonna be purchased. With this, it comes up to the $569,804.80 figure. Kind of internally, we talked about a $600,000 budget, so based on these numbers, we're falling short of that. And you could see some of the things that are on there. There's some park maintenance that we're gonna pay for or presented to you that we do pay for it that way, along with people to install a deck and a tractor. And a lot of this is going to, and you see the department where it's going to be used, it's going to help us to, kind of do things more efficiently, more effectively, more quickly. That's why a lot of this is needed. So I want to give you an opportunity, if you have any questions, comments, to do that now.
No, I'm just glad we'll be able to get some of this equipment that we need to do the work that's really needed here in Natchitoches, across the board,
Yep.
the city, yeah.
And in some of those areas, to piggyback on what you're saying, Ms. Councilwoman at large, is, some areas we do need a bigger budget for some more employees. And we do realize that. And so that's kind of why we're having the town hall meetings. It kind of ties in with that, which we're going to announce. We got another one coming up this week. Okay? All right. All right, saying there are no questions or comments from the council, that is just introduced. So we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, and it's ordinance number 57 of 2022. That's Councilman P.T.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 57 of 2022, an ordinance to designate funds from the American Rescue Plan for the use by the city of Natchitoches to provide funding for necessary renovations and improvements to the real property owned by the city of Natchitoches, commonly referred to as the John Deere Building, authorizing the execution of authorizing the execution of any and all documents, contracts, and agreements necessary to properly effectuate such renovations and otherwise providing with respect to thereto. This is for introduction only.
Okay, well, this ARPA allocation is about, council, $200,000. We have an agreement over 3 years, a lease purchase with Mr. Gillette to purchase the John Deere building on Texas Street. There are some renovations that need to be made to get Public Works employees from where they are on the Mill District to get them to this building on Texas Street. So, Mr. Forrest, I don't know if there's something you could share at this point. I know you've been talking very closely with some engineers we've been working with to help us to get this property, to where we can get our employees there.
Yes, Mayor, today me and Nick Barrett went over to the John Deere place because we was having issues with the drainage, right side on the west side of the building, that we was having, that water was coming in, so we was trying to see if we could divert the water to flow to Texas Street. I think it's gonna be a problem because it's only like 6/10 of a fall, and we kind of decided maybe we need to run some pipes to the back of the building to get it to run, but Nick said he have to do a little more research on it to make sure it don't cause problems with drainage. So we looking at that, but we don't know, and Nick gave a price, I think it would cost about, I think he came up with like maybe 90,000.
Okay.
All together, some kind of prices with the pipes and the drainage and the catch basins.
Okay.
On that, but he said we'd have to look a little more thorough, and also we have some issues where we was looking at trying to also do some work on the building in the inside and on the roof. So the roof would cost us about $50,000 to replace the roof on the John Deere. We don't want to do renovations and not have a good top on it, so we're looking at other things.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, any questions or comments, council, about this? Okay.
Mayor, if
Yes,
I
sir.
may ask, I was just wondering, of a timeline to when we'll get Public Works to moving that location.
Has anybody, I know you're talking to Mr. Nassif, has anybody kind of shared with what the timeline is going to be?
the timeline on everything is kind of, you know, getting contractors and also making sure, you know, getting back with each other, because I think Glenn does a lot of the work with their melon, and Norman said he was having a little issue trying to, you know, get back with him about what time he could get started. And he was also wanting to ask, also with that, would we have to have a bid? Because he was trying to make sure with the funds, he was trying to make sure that we have to bid it out. So that was one of the questions he wanted to know.
Okay, Mr. Norman wanted to know that?
Yes. You know, do we have
For
to-
his services, or?
No, we're talking about using certain types of funds. Will we have to bid it out in order to?
To get the work done?
We wouldn't?
I would think we would.
Okay.
I don't think we would.
And Donald, it's gonna be over 200.
I mean, it's something we certainly can figure it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
discuss it. I would
it's
think we
nothing
need
but,
to be bidded out.
Because we was trying to get numbers on the remodeling and all that, but he was saying, you know, if we get it, it might not be, if it got to be bidded out, he didn't know how close that would be, you know, so.
Donald, you have one group looking at doing all the renovations, or?
Well, at the time, we was just trying to get some numbers to see what it would cost to do it, you know, so we could bring it back to the mayor and the finance director to know, you know, what we're dealing with.
And Ed could provide guidance on what needs to go out for bid, or if we need to, prepare something.
Yeah, and let's just look at the numbers and what the projects are, if it's one project, a separate project.
If I could comment, the addition of the rear building was about $204,000. It's a standalone that you could start tomorrow. As I understand, Ed and I've looked at it with bid laws. That's completely different from the interior renovations or the drainage issue he's referring to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
This
Well-
is for the inside work, you say, right? What is this for now? I'm
Inside and
sorry.
out.
Well, yeah, he's roof
Inside
right
as
now,
well.
he's looking at
Okay.
some drainage, and then some inside stuff as well.
Yes.
And I think from now until the next meeting, we should hopefully have some quotes with some work that's gonna be done, so council can look at it and, you know, I think that'd be better, right? To have that, so hopefully, within 2 weeks, we could have that information. So kind of see if we can get that from your engineers you're working with, okay, Donald? All right? Any other questions, council? Questions, comments here? Okay, again, it's just for introduction. Certainly, if you have questions that come to mind throughout this process, please call or text or email. All right, next item on the agenda is ordinance number 58, 2022, also dealing with American Rescue Plan. That's Councilman Nielsen.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 58 of 2022, an ordinance to designate funds from the American Rescue Plan for use by the city of Natchitoches to provide funding for a grant program for necessary renovations and improvement to the real property in the city of Natchitoches through a cooperative endeavor agreement with Community Facade and Economic Enhancement Committee, and otherwise providing with respect thereto. And this is for introduction.
Right, this is the facade grant that we have talked about for Texas and Washington. Clarissa, you want to say something about this?
This is one that was previously approved, but now we're looking to get those funds from the ARPA funding. If you remember, it was originally $100,000, and we added the $5,000 for administrative cost. So that change did occur. So right now, we're just asking that it comes from the ARPA to fund that project. We haven't had any candidates or approved grantees that we've paid out yet, but I'm thinking that that's coming very soon, and we'll be able to present that to the council.
And we want to make sure the money is there before.
Before we begin that.
I understand what you're saying, but we were not aware of this, that the monies for the facade grant was to be coming from the ARPA funds.
Well, I think that was a decision that was made, just looking at the available funds and relieving our operational budget to some capacity, as all these items is to relieve our operational budget and be able to go into these endeavors, is that just as we presented the equipment, we're wanting to fund this particular project through the ARPA.
So $105,000 will be coming from the ARPA funds
Yes,
for
ma'am.
this facade? In addition to what? What else?
Oh, in addition to everything that's listed, so the John Deere building, which is at 200,000.
I mean, is there any other type funding going into it?
Any other funding going to the facade grant?
Mhm.
No, ma'am,
Just
because
that.
105 is the entire facade
It's the
grant.
entire,
Yes, ma'am.
And I think this is to do 100,000 a year. What is it for?
No, this is a one-time,
I mean, 50,000 a year, I'm sorry.
well, no, I think that came from just some regulations with their, the way they had to file. You couldn't have, more than $50,000, I think, at one time in the bank. So that's when we were thinking of splitting that, just to make sure that they were compliant with the structure of their organization. But, the facade grant is for $100,000. The way we are gonna approach it is that we're only gonna fund them for their approved grantees. So I don't think that we would run into the issue of having too much money in the bank, that would violate, their, structure, that they applied. But the entire grant itself is $105,000.
Okay.
And Ms. Smith, I know we're funding a grant program, but from the city perspective, we're giving that 105 to a nonprofit who has governmental services they want to provide, with those services being renovations to buildings and businesses on Texas Street. So I'm just saying that for the record, for the ARPA funds, we're funding a nonprofit who's going to provide that service to the community through a CEA. But it is the same 105 that you thought we had originally. That fund is not available, so we're requesting that it come from the ARPA fund.
And we did have this, and if you remember one of those brochures, what do we call that? The budget town hall, the citizens budget town hall? Yeah, we had it as a tentatively to come from ARPA. So this is us actually going beyond tentative and saying, hey, let's actually take it from ARPA to fund the facade grant. Okay? Any additional questions, comments, council?
Mayor, if I could just ask, do we have a number, how many applicants we have that will try to get the grant?
Nicole, do you have some information on that? Okay. That's right.
I say approve applicants.
And state your first and last name.
My name is Nicole Graham, the Community Outreach and Grants Manager, and I'm also the Secretary Treasurer for the Community Facade and Economic Enhancement Committee. We have 3 approved applicants for funding. They're working on their matching funds, and we will disperse the awarded amounts to those 3 applicants. It's actually 2 applicants. One of them has 2 businesses on Texas Street, and the other one has 1 business on Texas Street. So we recently approved those applications and let them know that they have been awarded those specific amounts that they requested. Additionally, we should announce as well that we are opening the second phase of the grant cycle, and those applications will be due on November 30th.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I received a call today. Do you know when this money will be going out?
So
One of the
as a requirement
applicants
of
has reached out.
the grant application, the business owners have a match requirement. We originally had them requiring 25% match on their project cost. We have recently reduced that to 10% of the project cost to make it more affordable for the businesses who've applied.
What if, for whatever reason, I wish all the businesses would apply on Texas Street and try to use up all this money, but what if they don't and we have all this excess money? What's going to happen to it? Do y'all have plans for that?
I think that if we do still have the excess money, we will probably, I don't want to state this out loud, but I'm here at the city council meeting answering these questions. We've considered reducing the match to 0.
Oh, I got you.
But we haven't done that in our nonprofit organization meeting just yet.
Have you lost any, Nicole?
Have you lost what?
Anybody that's applied and then?
No, we're just making sure they submit all of the required documentation. I don't think anyone will be turned away if they are operating an active business. If they're not operating an active business, we can't approve a grant application for anyone who's not operating an active business.
So basically, this would be like the upkeep, like they can get like new roofs, painting, et cetera.
This doesn't cover
Driveway.
roofs, but it is for the facade, so that also includes their parking lots, painting, replacement of windows, if they've got any rotting boards on their buildings, things that are for the visual effect that people can see from the streets.
New signage includes.
New signage as well. That also includes lighting, if they have lighting on their signage.
You mentioned the second phase, is that South Drive, the second phase?
No, this
Oh.
is for Texas and Washington Street
Washington, okay.
businesses.
Oh,
Yeah.
But to your point, we are looking at other areas. Just want to kind of see this mature and materialize before we go to some other areas.
Gotcha.
Just a question, not, hopefully you don't take it the wrong way, but I understand you're opening a business on Texas Street.
I am,
So-
and I'm not eligible for any
and-
of the grant funds.
Partnering with someone else opening a business on Texas Street, so.
Pardon?
I understand that you and someone else are going in partnership to open a business on Texas Street.
Yes, I acquired a building on Texas Street in January of this year.
Okay. So, being over this fund, you will not be
Obviously not,
conflict of interest. Okay.
definitely.
What about your business partner? How would that not be a conflict of interest?
We own the business together, so we wouldn't be applying for any funds.
You
That's
won't be,
not
okay.
only a conflict of
That's what
interest,
I
but
needed
it's
to know.
just not right.
Yeah, right.
Okay? Any other additional comments or questions?
I didn't think my business was up for discussion today, but I'm happy to
I brought it up
answer any
because
additional
people
questions
would
you
like to
have.
know you being a part of this facade grant and working for the city, so that
Yes, ma'am.
is why
So
I'm
that's
asking
twofold. I
you
work
to-
for the city, and
to
I
be
also
transparent to
absolutely
the city.
100% agree.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Since there are no more questions, the next item on the agenda, Mr. Stacy, is something, it's a resolution, and it's resolution number 78 of 2022. That's Councilwoman Washington Eli. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 78 of 2022, the resolution authorizing the application to be submitted by the city of Natchitoches for the grant funding regarding the broadband and the expressions of financial support for the projects and otherwise providing with respect thereto. It doesn't have anything else after that, so I guess I can just, I don't have anything, it's just the title.
Oh, okay.
It's at the end.
Yeah, I can, you wanna?
You can have mine.
Okay. Whereas the city council has expressed financial support for matching the funding and operation costs and contributed to related to the state federal grant application upon approval provided by the city in financials above to provide the match and opportunity costs to the time and approval. And is this for introduction? Okay, so I just moved to adopt resolution numbers 78 of 2022.
Second.
Okay. All righty. Okay. I think, Steve, we have some folks on Zoom, right? So I've got, I'm gonna call him Dave. Don't know how to pronounce Dave's last name, and Vince. But they are with Neo Networks, or Network, I think it is. And we want them to basically share with us what this broadband grant would do for us here, and also to speak to some of the costs as well. So, hey Vince, you doing okay? All right, you can hear us well.
Unmute his mic.
What's that? Well, I see Vince is unmuted. We can't hear Vince, though. He's talking, but we can't hear him. All right, Vince, just hold tight for us 1 second. We're trying to get volume going. All right, I heard something. I think I heard something.
Check 1, 2.
Way to go, Steve. All right, good job, Steve. All right, Vince, again, we're here at the city council meeting for the city of Natchitoches. I think you may have heard me, but as we discussed, just kind of explain to the city council and everybody who's here and listening what this middle mile grant will accomplish for us, and also speak of, some of the costs and things of that nature.
Sure thing. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for having us, ladies and gentlemen, City Council. Appreciate the time. First of all, my apologies for not being there in person. Normally, of a matter of this importance, we'd be there in person. Not sure if you've heard about the timelines that we're working under right now, but the middle mile grant that we're talking about this afternoon is actually due on September 30th, and it's probably one of the most complicated grant applications I've ever seen. So forgive us for not being there in person. We would have loved to have been there. Do you guys have capability to see my screen if I were to share the presentation, or have you already distributed out the presentation?
Yeah, we should be able to see it, Vince.
Okay, let me see if I can pull it up and get a good look. Everyone see that from your side?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So I'll take you through, I was asked to kind of keep it short and sweet here this afternoon, so we're going to try to compress Boil the Ocean down into a 10-minute presentation. I'm Vince Aragon. I'm the founder and CEO of Neo Network Development. With me is David Wojcik. He's our VP of BizDev as well. Just by very brief background, I've been in the space, in the wireless, fiber optic, and telecommunications space now commercially for about 40 years. Back in 2013, we really started the company on a different path and direction, kind of with a focus of helping public sector agencies, primarily state, county, local municipal government agencies, utilities, and transportation agencies, to professionally catalog, market, and lease their vertical infrastructure for wireless and for broadband, basically for commercial use. In the past several years, we've expanded our service offering to also include a fiber optic component, where ultimately what we do is we bind together fiber optics to community anchor institutions. We strategically route the fiber in and through the public and utility rights of way, basically set it up so that we can integrate traffic signal poles and street lights, as well as the placement of new poles and vertical assets in the right of way, to do two things. One is to really develop the asset base for technology that can be used for community use purposes, which is one of the things we're talking about here today. The other one is to set it up so that we can generate commercial revenues from that, to basically help to pay the operating expenses and recover the capital investment over a period of time. The way that we look at the space as a general rule is there's really four basic commodities that every advanced emerging technology really needs to thrive. It's vertical real estate, power, so commercial electric service, expedited permits, and a fiber optic or a wireless network to backhaul all that traffic. And if you have those four basic commodities, you now have a product that can be put to work, again, for community use, but also can be put to work to generate non-recurring or recurring annual non-tax revenues. So we've been working with the city now for a little over a year. You may have heard us mentioned, we were introduced from a relationship we've got with our engineering construction prime contractor, V1 Fiber. They were initially operating under an MOU with the city, a memorandum of understanding. They pulled us in shortly thereafter, basically as more of an integrator, developer, and someone that could actually help put an actual smart city master plan in place for the city. And that's why you're hearing about us now. We subsequently had the MOU was assigned to us. We've also put in place a non-disclosure agreement, and we've been now preparing the designs and the various components to submit for the middle mile grant. for several months now. So we've been refining that over the period of time. One of the important things to remember is, the federal government, the Biden administration, through the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, has set aside about $65 billion in total for broadband expansion, with really a focus on unserved and underserved communities. The stated goal is to provide affordable and reliable broadband for all Americans. The challenge with that, if we were to look at how to do that with fiber, that's about a $1.2 trillion problem. So we're really managing towards a budget of about $65 billion in total to try to provide the most capital efficient, technology-based solution we can for various communities. So when we first started looking at Natchitoches, one of the things we recognized is you've got kind of a twofold problem. One is you do have an access problem in degrees. The networks that are already in place are a little bit limited on upload and download speed. The secondary problem that I actually think is the more important of the two is affordability. Based on the income demographic of your city, we see that the broadband adoption rate is just a little bit south of 60%. And we think that the biggest factor as far as the low adoption rate is the lack of an affordable grade of service for the residents of your community. So we've been we put together several different designs and did several different variations and iterations. We looked at fiber to the home, where we would basically build the infrastructure to connect all the homes together. We looked at a fiber to the curb design, where we would work with a service provider to build a last mile connection from the backbone to the home. We've looked at a pure wireless solution that has a laundry list of challenges with it, not the least of which is you're somewhat limited on capacity. And the one where we landed on it was really a hybrid of a fiber optic middle mile, an infrastructure investment, and a wireless last mile solution that's capable of providing cost-free and affordable broadband for every member of your community. So that's essentially where we got to from a design, capital budgeting, operating expense budgeting, and evaluating the capital efficiencies and some of the other factors that are weighted in the grant application. In essence, this middle mile grant is really intended to weave in unserved and underserved communities, and that could be long haul from state to state, that could be county to county, it could be individual communities from within the same city. So it's really set up for a number of different innovation types of techniques, not the least of which our own that we produced for the city. Ultimately, if it's awarded, it covers about 70% of the eligible project capital cost. It does not cover operating expenses. In this case, we've set the application up to where the city would be the primary applicant. You'd be the grant recipient, the fiscal sponsor, the fund administrator, and ultimately post-implementation, the city would own the fiber optic network and the vertical infrastructure and the wireless networks that sit on top of that. The financial commitments in the application require a contributed capital amount of about 30%, which could be a combination of hard capital as well as in-kind exchanges, which we've already modeled for the city. There's a significant amount of in-kind contribution that we can apply for in the grant itself. Any of the financial commitments that the city be looking to make, today or over the span of the next couple of weeks will be contingent on award of the middle mile grant. So it's a best efforts type of an application that we're putting forward. It is, kind of in the sweet spot of the application types that are being accepted and the intended use cases. But again, if the grant does not issue, then the city is really under absolutely no obligation to move forward. The interesting thing here again is the time constraint is September 30th is the filing deadline for the middle mile. So I'll pause here for a second, see if anyone has any questions, and I'll move on.
Council, did you hear what
automatic lights kicked in? So basically what I was asked to do is put together kind of a short and sweet version of kind of who we are and what we do and kind of the approach that we take with these types of grants. And again, we're doing these types of grants for a very, very small city, less than 4 square miles. We're also doing grant applications for 2 major counties as well that are really more, one is very urban and another one is very rural. So this program that we've developed, this smart city program that we've developed is really a model program that works in any income demographic. It works for any type of morphology terrain, and is very, very repeatable and scalable. But essentially, phase one is we have to produce a shovel-ready design and an actual master plan as a part of the grant application itself. First thing we'll do is we'll come in and we'll catalog and inventory all of your community anchor institutions, your public buildings, K through 12 schools, public libraries, public safety, police, fire departments, identify your city parks, rec centers, all your vertical infrastructure in the right of way, so your street lights, traffic signal poles and support poles, and also any real property, raw land sites that could be developed as digital real estate, as well as mapping any existing utility distribution poles. We really compartmentalize these types of grants into three primary components because it seems that the application reviewers have a tendency to look at the different components of the architecture individually. So when we look at the fiber, it's an open access, high capacity fiber optic middle mile network. It's intended to be shared for community technology use purposes and to create revenue from commercial use. The wireless network that we're looking at is a citywide wireless last mile network that's a combination of free public Wi-Fi 6E, as well as a private LTE CBRS network that can be used for voice and mobile data, which could potentially replace some of the cell phone subscriptions that you currently pay for on a year-over-year basis. The third component is the vertical infrastructure. It's poles that we would intend to place on the anchor institutions to get elevation that we need to provide a wireless footprint, as well as some strategic locations in and through the public and utility rights of way where we would place some additional poles to provide that last mile coverage, in particular in the more rural areas of the city that are a little bit more difficult to reach and are more readily unserved.
Okay, Vincent, that's a lot of information. We are at that 10-minute kind of time that we were looking at.
So let me jump you right through. So phase two, without going into the weeds on it, phase two is we help you get the project financed. So the middle mile grant is one of them. The capital contribution could be at 30% in capital, and it also can use ARPA funds. So they are qualifiable, as well as the in-kind exchange. There's also a number of interest-free government loans. There's securitized debt facilities, local municipal budget appropriations, and private equity investments. In essence, we come in for phase three. We manage the entire deployment from beginning to end. The placement of the vertical infrastructure, the wireless last mile, and on a parallel path, we design and build a build-to-suit fiber optic middle mile network that connects it all together. Essentially, the phase four is post-implementation. We come in as your operating agent and your sales and marketing agent, and this is all done under a success-based revenue sharing arrangement under the public-private partnership agreement. The primary revenue components, we generate annualized recurring revenue from the fiber, annualized recurring revenue from the pole rents and attachment fees, the wireless network subscription upgrade. So you've got a cost-free version of public Wi-Fi. There's also a $9.95 a month upgrade, a $14.95 per month upgrade, as well as a $19.95 per month upgrade, which is where we generate some of the recurring revenues from the wireless network. The network that we've got designed and ready to submit, about 35 route miles of high count open access middle mile fiber that you can see here in red and blue, 21 new 60-foot poles on the anchor institutions, and the 23 anchor institutions, 68 new 50-foot poles that are remote access points to provide infill. The capital breakdown, approximately $3.5 million in total CapEx for fiber, $2.1 million for the vertical real estate. And when you layer in the wireless network on top, approximately $1.6 million on top. So the total capital cost is about $7.2 million. This would actually provide coverage to about 7,000 of 7,200 buildings from a wireless last mile perspective. About 97% of the city residents would have access at a capital cost of about $411 per resident. So very capital efficient way to go about this. The 2,100 homes and businesses would be immediately addressable, connectable to fiber. We would typically work with the service provider to put in the last mile connection with fiber, and we can actually serve about 29% of your residents and businesses directly off the fiber optic backbone. Capital breakdown, within the $7.2 million, about $3.4 million tied to fiber, approximately $2.1 million tied to the vertical infrastructure and the infrastructure development, approximately 1.6 million here tied to the wireless last mile. So if you were to look at that from a 30% capital contribution standpoint, approximately $2.2 million against a $5 million grant application. Operating expenses, approximately $400,000 a year. That includes both hard and soft operating expenses. Natchitoches is kind of unique in that you have your own municipal utilities, so some of these expense line items may or may not ever be realized. For example, you may not, have to pay yourselves for fiber attachment fees. You may be self-insured. So this really represents kind of what we would anticipate to be the high-end budgetary figures to support the deployment from beginning to end. So looking at the totality of the project, 7.2 million, 30% capital contribution will be about 2.2 million. We would file for, apply, and ideally receive a $5 million grant. The estimated annual operating expenses on the high end, $400,000 per year. The owner of record, in this case being the city, would be committing to a maximum of $2 million over a 5-year period of time to cover the annualized expenses. Essentially what we're seeking City Council to approve is up to $2.2 million in capital spend over the next 3 years. 1.6 million would be dedicated as the wireless last mile. The other component, the other 600,000 will be applying for as an in-kind contribution. But in the event that that's declined, the maximum value would still be 2.2 million. We'd be looking at up to $2 million over a 5-year period for operating expenses. And ideally, what we'd like to do is on a fast track is secure authorization for us to apply on behalf of the city, with, again, any hard appropriations being contingent on reward of the grant itself. In the deck, if you refer to it really quickly, there's some examples of some deployments that we've done in northern Indiana, building mounts, smokestack mounts, as well as a 60-foot pole on one of the K through 12 schools. And this is a link and a little bit of a slide that shows you what the poles are that we did in Dallas. We did a pilot for them about 18 months ago. These poles are actually solar powered, battery backup, so they're 100% green energy, no power consumption. That's a cylindrical solar panel, embedded battery backup. So there's no electric service bill. It just runs throughout all types of weather environments and so on. So my apologies for the fast rate of speech here, but I know you guys are pressed for time. So with that, I'll just be quiet and see if there's any questions and we can go from there.
All right, thank you, Vince. Council, I know there was a lot in a short time. But are there any questions that you have for Vince? I think Vince said a couple things that we should note again. This is going to help in terms of adoption. We currently have about 59% of our residents who use broadband. This would help us to get that number up. I know as well, you want to think about the costs. So what we don't have here is a number in the legislation, and we need a not to exceed number here. So could we say, Vince, not to exceed 2.2 million, or we would need to say more than that? And I think another thing he said as well is that, we could, if something down the road, we don't think this is for us, we could not accept the grant. That's a possibility if we think the numbers don't work out. I did share with Councilman Nielsen, I think, and some others, that we're going to try to look for other matches. I think I shared that with a few of you, that we'll try to look for other matches with that 2.2. But you do also have that operating expense over 5 years, and that's until we start to see this program create some profitability. So.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. The 2.2 million, it would be anticipated worst case. Where we actually believe that's going to land is, and the way that we see this becoming the most probable outcome is because the wireless last mile is not necessarily something that they warm up to very readily. We think the best probability of success in getting the grant is if the city were to put up the 1.6 million for the wireless last mile element. The remainder we can get an in-kind contribution value. But the worst case, if we had to put it up, the entire 30% as capital would be 2.2 million.
So we'll try to submit some in-kind as well, so we don't have to pay those expenses, directly from the funds we have. Are there any questions?
I just have one for Matt. Have we looked at the right-of-way requests?
Have we looked at right-of-way requests?
Yeah, like specifically where he's gonna put poles and.
No, I don't think we've gotten that deep into it.
Okay.
They can put them on existing poles, they can put them on water towers, city buildings, things of that nature, but we haven't got that deep into it yet.
Okay.
Because right now before us is just to tell them to go ahead and apply for the grant. That's just what's before us today.
Right, so this is not binding in the
Yeah.
sense that any money is gonna be obligated from the city.
Yeah.
Right, so you're right. So it's to say, let's apply for the grant. In the meantime, there are some things, Vince is gonna work the in-kind angle. We'll also try to work an angle if we can find some matches to the 2.2 million, or 1.6 that he said that will have to be in terms of the 30% match. So 70% of it will be paid for by federal dollars, 30% will come from non-federal dollars, or wouldn't come from this program, is what I'm trying to say. Right? Okay? All right, any more questions? Okay, thank you, Vince. We appreciate you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the time. All right, take care.
All right, so Alex, I guess my question is, we don't have any numbers in this legislation.
Right. This resolution is allowing the city to make the application, and the council is expressing their support, financial support, without a number.
Okay.
The presentation was just to let the group know what the not to exceed number could be. This would have to come back before the council for y'all allocate any funding. A part of receiving the grant, you would have to obviously allocate either the 1.6 or 2 million.
Yeah, so basically, you're saying specific numbers not needed at this time?
No, we're just making an application, and we're saying we're expressing financial support. If the city have the funds available and y'all allocate it, we can move forward, provided we receive approval for the grant.
Okay. All right. Any public comments or questions? All right, I don't think so. All right, Mrs. Stacy, roll call vote.
Eli?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Harrington?
Yes.
PT?
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Our next meeting is on the 26th of September. We always ask people to download Go Natchitoches so you know what's going on. Also regroup. Thankfully, we haven't had any major disasters this year. We want to hope that that continues to be the case, but you still want to download the app because you never know when these things are going to happen, all right? All right, next slide, Steve. I think there's just a few more things we want to bring to their attention in terms of announcements. All right, town hall meeting coming up this Thursday at 6:30. We pretty much say 6:30 to 7:30. It's going to be at the Weaver Elementary Gymnasium on 520 St. Maurice Street. So we're hoping to get residents there. I think there's, I think we have more people who are residents and who are there at this next one, okay? All right, this is the Meepah Festival. We heard everything that they had to present. Hopefully you'll take some time this weekend to stop by and participate with that. So this is a time where we have festivals going on. Recently had the Zydeco, you got the Meepah, you're gonna have the car show, and then of course Christmas Fest. All right, now this is a breast cancer awareness walk run, I think put on by the Crew of Excellence and the Natchitoches Regional Medical Center. So we're asking individuals, I think anybody can sign up, participate, right? So we're bringing attention to, as we did with ovarian cancer, as we did with sickle cell anemia, also breast cancer, because I know we all know individuals who've been affected by that. All right, and then the classic car show is going to be October 3rd, 2020, 1987 or older, always. Oh. So we gotta double check that date, okay?
Yeah,
we gotta double check. What is it? October 1st is what we're saying. So we'll amend that. But yeah, October 1st is when it's gonna be 2022. All right, is that the last thing, Steve? I think it is. Okay, I guess, I know we're ready for this. At this time, we'll hear a motion to
May I motion
adjourn.
adjourn?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, folks, for coming.